The Grand Tribunal Hall stretched across 17,000 square meters of polished obsidian flooring, and I, Ambassador Threll of the Vocarian Empire, had stood in this exact spot for diplomatic proceedings exactly 467 times in my career. Not once, not ever, had I witnessed anything remotely close to what was about to unfold. The Emergency Council for Galactic Threats had convened under the most dire circumstances. A parasitic entity known as the Shrieking Void had consumed 12 star systems in the Outer Rim, and conventional warfare had proven laughably inadequate. The thing ate plasma, absorbed kinetic energy, and seemed to grow stronger with every attack we threw at it. So naturally, the High Command decided to get creative. Stupidly, terrifyingly creative. Every civilization will present their apex predator, High Magistrate Curvin announced, his 3 vocal cords harmonizing in that pompous way that made me want to throw my ceremonial staff at his head. We shall unleash nature's finest killers upon this abomination, and see which species truly deserves its place among the stars. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. When diplomacy fails, apparently we resort to a cosmic version of animal fighting rings. The Klendari went first, naturally, because they never shut up about their superiority. They wheeled in a containment cylinder holding what they called a razor-spine devourer. The thing stood 12 feet tall, covered in metallic scales that could deflect nuclear blasts, with mandibles that could shear through starship hulls. It had 8 eyes, each one tracking movement independently, and claws that dripped with acid potent enough to melt through concrete in seconds. Behold, the Klendari representative boomed. 300 million years of evolution, perfected through brutal natural selection on a world where every creature fights for survival from the moment of birth. The crowd murmured appreciatively. I had to admit, the thing looked properly terrifying. Next came the Thorians, who brought something they called a mind flayer serpent. This monstrosity stretched 40 feet long, with psychic abilities that could induce hallucinations so vivid that victims literally died of fear. It had consumed an entire research station once, according to the reports. 200 scientists, gone, leaving only their screaming echoes recorded in the security logs. Then the Borvaxians presented their entry. A creature made entirely of living metal that could reshape itself into any form, squeeze through microscopic cracks, and possessed a hive mind intelligence that had once outsmarted a quantum computer. On and on it went, each species trying to outdo the last, each monstrosity more horrifying than the previous. The Yalvites brought something that existed partially in another dimension. The Cortexians wheeled in a tank containing a microscopic swarm that could strip flesh from bone in under 3 seconds. 17 apex predators. 17 nightmare fuel specimens that represented millions of years of evolutionary arms races. And then the humans arrived. I had met humans before. Strange bipedal mammals from a moderately dangerous death world in Sector 7. They were a recent addition to the Galactic Council, only achieving faster-than-light travel about 70 years prior. Ambitious, creative, occasionally brilliant, frequently insane. They had a disturbing tendency to look at impossible problems and respond with what they called optimism, which seemed to be a mental disorder characterized by unjustified confidence and poor survival instincts. Their ambassador, a woman named Jessica Varro, walked into the hall wearing a plain gray suit and carrying what appeared to be a small bag with cartoon animals printed on it. She looked tired. Very tired. The kind of tired that suggests several consecutive nights of inadequate sleep. Ambassador Varro, Magistrate Corvin intoned. You may present Earth's apex predator. Jessica smiled. It was not a reassuring smile. It was the smile of someone who had given up on sanity approximately 48 hours ago and decided to just see what happened next. Right, she said. Yes, our apex predator. So, full disclosure, there was a bit of a mix-up with the transport scheduling, and our actual apex predator, a Siberian tiger named Maximus, is currently stuck in quarantine because someone forgot to file the proper customs forms. Classic bureaucracy. Am I right? The hall fell silent. You could have heard a microorganism sneeze. Why? But, Jessica continued, her smile growing wider and somehow more unsettling. We did bring a substitute. And honestly, I think this might work out better. She reached down and opened a small gate on what I now realized was a portable enclosure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I heard it. a sound that would haunt my dreams for cycles to come. Newarge. What emerged from that container stood approximately 0.9 meters tall. It had 2 legs, 2 arms, a disproportionately large head, and wore clothing decorated with images of colorful transportation vehicles. Its face had contorted into an expression of pure, undiluted rage. Tears streamed down its cheeks. Its mouth had opened to reveal small, inefficient teeth. And it was screaming. Oh, by all the stars in all the galaxies, it was screaming. This, Jessica announced with the pride of someone introducing a superweapon, is Marcus. He is 3 years old. And he is very, very upset because I told him he could not have candy for breakfast. Marcus took one look at the assembled dignitaries, apex predators, and advanced technology surrounding him. His eyes narrowed. His face turned an alarming shade of red. And then he threw himself onto the floor and began what humans apparently call a tantrum. Want candy. Now. The shrieking reached frequencies I did not know organic life could produce. Marcus began, drumming his fists and feet against the obsidian floor with such force that small cracks appeared in the ancient stone. The razor-spine devourer, that 12-foot-tall nightmare that could shred starship hulls, backed away from its containment cylinder. Ambassador Varro, Kervin said, his 3 vocal cords producing a strangled harmony of confusion. This is a juvenile human? Yep. Jessica popped the P sound with aggressive cheerfulness. Specifically, a toddler. Apex predator? Maybe not. Apex chaos agent? Absolutely. Marcus had discovered that if he kicked the floor at just the right angle, he could make a sound that resonated through the entire hall. He began doing this repeatedly, rhythmically, with the dedication of a creature possessed. Hate. You. Hate. Everyone. Want. Candy. Perhaps, I ventured, trying to maintain my diplomatic composure while my ears rang from the auditory assault. There has been a misunderstanding about the nature of this gathering. Oh no, Jessica said, reaching into her bag and pulling out what appeared to be a nutritional supplement bar. I understand perfectly. You want to see what Earth's got? This is what we've got. Every single human on my planet started out like this. Every single one. And we survived. We thrived. Because if you can handle one of these tiny rage demons, you can handle literally anything the universe throws at you. She unwrapped the bar. Marcus immediately stopped screaming. His head swiveled toward the food with the tracking precision of a military targeting system. The sudden silence felt more ominous than the screaming had. Marcus, Jessica said sweetly, would you like a snack? Yes, please. Marcus replied in a voice so polite, so perfectly modulated, that I briefly wondered if the previous 5 minutes had been a mass hallucination. What? The Klendari representative said slowly. Was that? Behavioral manipulation, Jessica explained, handing the bar to Marcus, who immediately became absorbed in eating it. Humans dedicate approximately 18 years to raising these small agents of chaos into functional adults. We develop patience, problem-solving skills, and the ability to function on minimal sleep. It is, quite possibly, the most intense survival training in the known universe. The Mind Flayer serpent, which had been slowly approaching the edge of its containment, suddenly retreated. I could have sworn I detected fear in its multiple eyes. Marcus finished his snack. He looked up at Jessica. His face began to crumple again. Oh no. More? No, sweetie. You already had one. And just like that, hell returned. Want. More. Not. Fair. You. Are. Mean. Meanest. Mommy. Ever. Marcus grabbed the nearest object, which happened to be a ceremonial cushion worth approximately 40,000 credits, and hurled it across the room with surprising force and accuracy. It struck the Borvaxian ambassador directly in what I assumed was his face. The living metal creature began vibrating at a frequency that suggested distress. The Mind Flayer serpent coiled into a defensive position. The razor-spine devourer made a sound I had never heard before, something between a whimper and a prayer. Marcus spotted the apex predators. His eyes went wide. For one blessed moment, I thought perhaps he would be frightened into silence. Puppy! He shrieked with delight, and began running directly toward the razor-spine devourer. 12 feet of evolved killing machine scrambled backward, trying desperately to get away from 3 feet of determined toddler. Marcus, no. Jessica lunged forward, but the child demonstrated the speed and agility that apparently made human younglings such effective escape artists. He ducked under her grasp and continued his charge. "Ghana, pet the puppy." The Klendari representative frantically activated the containment cylinder controls. The razor-spine devourer, apex predator of one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy, pressed itself against the far wall of its enclosure, making sounds that could only be described as terrified chittering. Marcus reached the cylinder and pressed his sticky, snack-covered hands against the transparent aluminum. "Hi, puppy. I am Marcus. Do you want to be friends?" The razor-spine devourer, I kid you not, closed all 8 of its eyes. "Fascinating," Jessica said, making notes on a datapad. 17 apex predators, and every single one is demonstrating avoidance behavior. It is almost like they evolved to recognize and retreat from creatures exhibiting unpredictable, high-energy behavior patterns, with no regard for personal safety. "This," Corvin said weakly, "is highly irregular." "This," Jessica countered, "is humanity. We take the most chaotic, unpredictable, exhausting phase of our development, and we just deal with it. For years. And then those little chaos agents grow up and become scientists, engineers, soldiers, diplomats. Some of them even become responsible adults, though that part is honestly hit or miss." Marcus had gotten bored with the unresponsive razor-spine devourer and had moved on to the mind-flayer serpent. The psychic creature attempted to induce fear hallucinations. Marcus laughed with delight. "Pretty colors." The serpent recoiled, its psychic abilities apparently ineffective against a mind that had not yet fully developed object permanence. "Your proposal," I said carefully, watching as Marcus discovered he could make faces at his reflection in the polished obsidian floor, "is to send this child to fight the Shrieking Void." "Oh, stars no." Jessica looked horrified. "That would be irresponsible and illegal, and about 47 other things. I am proposing that we send approximately 12,000 trained human specialists who were all raised alongside creatures like Marcus, who developed their patience and problem-solving skills by managing the unmanageable, and who possess a unique understanding of how to handle chaos entities because, frankly, toddlers and cosmic horrors have a lot in common." She gestured to Marcus, who had discovered that if he spun in circles fast enough, he would get dizzy and fall down. He appeared to find this endlessly entertaining. Both operate on incomprehensible logic. Both seem to feed on negative emotions. Both can be temporarily pacified with the right approach but never fully controlled. And both require someone who can stay calm, think creatively, and adapt on the fly. Humans? We have been training for this since we were babies ourselves. The Thorian representative leaned forward. "You are suggesting that humans are qualified to combat the Shrieking Void because you endure miniature chaos entities during your development?" "I am suggesting," Jessica said, finally catching Marcus before he could investigate the Yalvite dimensional creature, "that any species capable of raising functional adults from that," she pointed to Marcus, who was now singing a song about transportation vehicles at the top of his lungs, "can absolutely handle your reality-eating space monster. Wheels on the bus. Go round and round." Curvin looked at me. I looked back at Curvin. We shared a moment of absolute, crystal clear understanding. We were both reconsidering every assumption we had ever made about humanity. "We will," Curvin said slowly, "take your proposal under advisement." "Great." Jessica hoisted Marcus onto her hip, despite his protests that he was a big boy and could walk himself. "We will be at our delegation quarters. Fair warning, nap time is in approximately 1 hour, and if he does not get his nap, things get much, much worse." "Worse," the Klendari representative whispered. "How could this possibly get worse?" Jessica just smiled that tired, knowing smile and carried the still-singing Marcus out of the Grand Tribunal Hall. In the silence that followed, the razor-spine devourer finally opened its eyes and made a sound that, if I did not know better, I would have called relieved. 3 standard cycles later, I found myself aboard the human coalition vessel named, somewhat ominously, the Defiant. The ship smelled like something they called coffee, recycled air, and what Jessica cheerfully described as organized chaos. I had been assigned as the official Galactic Council observer for what High Command was calling Operation Naptime. 12,000 human specialists had volunteered for this mission. Every single one of them had extensive experience in what they termed childcare, education, or family management. They ranged from former teachers to pediatric medical staff to parents of multiple offspring. They all shared the same slightly unhinged look in their eyes, the look of people who had stared into the abyss of toddler logic and emerged forever changed. Captain Elena Ruiz ran the operation from the bridge, a compact woman with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. She wore a military uniform decorated with an alarming number of commendations and a coffee stain on the left sleeve. Ambassador Threll. She greeted me with the kind of forced enthusiasm humans employed when deeply sleep-deprived. Welcome aboard. Hope you brought ear protection. I was not informed that auditory shielding would be necessary, I said cautiously. Oh, you sweet summer alien, murmured Lieutenant Dmitry Volkov from the tactical station. He wore specialized headphones and had the haunted expression of someone who had seen terrible things. You have no idea what you signed up for. The Shrieking Void had been detected near the Kelvin 9 system, currently in the process of consuming its 14th star. The entity measured approximately 900 kilometers in diameter, composed of what scientists described as weaponized entropy given semi-conscious form. It consumed matter, energy, and according to recent reports, hope itself. Previous military engagements had failed spectacularly. The Vocarian Imperial fleet had lost 67 ships before retreating. The Klendari had attempted to use their razor-spine devourers in a direct assault. The creatures had taken one look at the Shrieking Void and collectively refused to leave their transport containers. All right, people, Captain Ruiz announced. Everyone remembers the strategy briefing? A chorus of affirmatives echoed across the bridge. Dr. Michael Torres, the mission's chief psychologist, pulled up a holographic display showing the Shrieking Void in all its reality-bending horror. Standard approach has failed because everyone treats this thing like a monster, he explained, highlighting various failed attack vectors. But look at the behavior patterns. It throws tantrums when ignored. It consumes everything in its path without consideration for consequences. It makes high-pitched noises that cause psychological distress. It operates on completely irrational logic. It acts, I said slowly, realization dawning, like Marcus. Exactly. Dr. Torres snapped his fingers. Not identical, obviously. This thing is a cosmic-scale entity of pure chaos. But the fundamental behavioral patterns, we have seen them before. Every parent in this fleet has dealt with a smaller version of this exact problem. So your strategy is? I trailed off, not quite believing what I was about to say. You are going to treat the Shrieking Void like a misbehaving child? We prefer the term boundary setting with consequences, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka said from the communication station. But yes, essentially, this was insane. This was beyond insane. This was so far past insane that insane was a distant memory on the horizon. The Defiant approached the Kelvin 9 system, along with 47 other human vessels. Through the view screen, I could see the Shrieking Void in all its terrible glory. It looked like someone had torn a hole in reality and filled it with screaming. Colors that should not exist swirled around its edges. The sound it made, even through the ship's dampening fields, set my teeth on edge. Phase 1, Captain Ruiz announced. Establish boundaries. The fleet moved into a wide perimeter around the entity. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. Defining a space. The Shrieking Void noticed. It emitted a sound that shattered 3 monitoring instruments and caused 2 crew members to start crying involuntarily. Translation from the cosmic tantrum? Volkov asked. Leave me alone. I do what I want. You cannot tell me what to do. Dr. Torres translated with the weary accuracy of someone who had heard variations of this statement approximately 10,000 times. Classic defiance behavior. Phase 2, Captain Ruiz said calmly. Acknowledge feelings, maintain boundaries. A transmission broadcast on all frequencies, translated into the mathematical language that the Shrieking Void seemed to comprehend. I listened to the human translation through my communication implant. We understand you are upset. We understand you feel hungry. However, eating star systems is not acceptable behavior. We need you to stop. The Shrieking Void responded by intensifying its consumption rate and launching what appeared to be pseudopods of pure entropy toward the nearest human vessel. Contact in 40 seconds, Tactical called out. Evasive maneuvers, pattern Delta 7. Ruiz ordered without raising her voice. All ships, maintain perimeter. Do not engage aggressively. The fleet moved with practiced precision, avoiding the entropic attacks while maintaining their positions. The Shrieking Void shrieked louder. I recognized the sound from the Tribunal Hall. Frustration at not getting an expected response. It is escalating to get a reaction, I observed. Of course it is, Ruiz said. They always do. Extinction burst behavior. When the usual tantrum does not work, they try harder before trying something different. And if this extinction burst involves destroying several more star systems, that is why we have Phase 3. Redirection with acceptable alternatives. On Ruiz's signal, the science vessels deployed what looked like massive containment spheres filled with compressed stellar matter, snacks. They were offering the cosmic horror entity snacks. The Shrieking Void paused. Its attention shifted to the new objects. Cautiously, almost suspiciously, it extended a tendril of entropy toward the nearest sphere. Non-sentient matter only, Dr. Torres narrated. No inhabited systems, no active ecosystems, just pure energy and raw materials that satisfy the consumption drive without causing harm. The entity consumed the sphere. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. Is it working? I asked, not quite believing what I was seeing. Hard to say, Tanaka replied. Wait for it. The Shrieking Void finished the last sphere. There was a moment of silence. Then it reached toward another star system. On, there we go, Volkov muttered. The testing phase. All vessels, move to intercept, Ruiz ordered. Block access to inhabited systems. Physical barriers if necessary. The human ships positioned themselves between the Shrieking Void and the populated systems. The entity screamed, a sound that registered on sensors as weaponized despair. It tried to go around, over, through. Each time, the ships adjusted position. Not attacking, just blocking. You are going to just stand in its way? I said. Have you ever tried to walk past a determined parent in a doorway? Lieutenant Commander Aisha Okonkwo asked from her station. Sometimes the most effective strategy is just being immovable. This continued for 6 hours. The Shrieking Void threw what could only be described as an escalating series of tantrums. It screamed. It thrashed. It tried every possible angle of approach. The human fleet maintained position, took turns on shifts, and absolutely refused to move. I watched human crew members nap at their stations during downtime. I watched them eat meals while monitoring this cosmic entity's behavior patterns. I watched them maintain an attitude of calm, patient persistence that would have impressed a statue. Captain, Dr. Torres said eventually, we are seeing behavioral shift indicators. Entropy output down by 32%. Movement patterns becoming more exploratory, less aggressive. It is getting tired, Ruiz observed. Deploy Phase 4. Positive reinforcement for acceptable behavior. When the Shrieking Void finally, tentatively, reached for one of the provided containment spheres instead of an inhabited system, the response was immediate. The human fleet transmitted what their xenopsychologists had determined was the mathematical equivalent of praise and encouragement. Good choice. That is exactly the right decision. We are very proud of you. I felt ridiculous just hearing it. The Shrieking Void, however, paused. It consumed the sphere. The humans transmitted more positive reinforcement. It consumed another sphere. More praise. Are you? I struggled to find words. Are you training it? Establishing preferred behavior patterns through consistent consequences and positive reinforcement. Dr. Torres corrected. But yes. Basically. Over the next 72 hours, the pattern continued. The Shrieking Void would test boundaries. The humans would maintain them. The entity would make acceptable choices. The humans would reinforce them. Slowly, incrementally, with the patience of people who had spent years teaching tiny humans not to stick objects into power outlets, they shaped the behavior of a cosmic-scale chaos entity. This should not be working, I said for approximately the 40th time. Why not? Ruiz asked, watching as the Shrieking Void consumed its 67th provided sphere and completely ignored a nearby inhabited planet. The entity operates on emotional behavioral patterns instead of rational thought. It responds to consistency, boundaries, and reinforcement. It exists in a state of perpetual, Dysregulation seeking any form of stimulation. We have seen this before. We know how to handle this. But it destroyed 12 star systems, and Marcus destroyed a ceremonial cushion worth 40,000 credits, she countered. Scale is different. Fundamental behavioral dynamics are remarkably similar. Everything that exists in a state of chaotic dysregulation is essentially trying to communicate needs it does not know how to express appropriately. By the end of the second week, something remarkable had happened. The Shrieking Void had established what Dr. Torres called a routine. It consumed the provided spheres. It stayed within designated areas. It no longer attacked inhabited systems. The sound it made had shifted from weaponized screaming to something almost musical, like cosmic whale song performed by an entity that existed partially outside normal spacetime. We cannot just leave it like this, the Galactic Council transmitted. What happens when you depart? We are not leaving, Captain Ruiz replied. We are establishing a permanent monitoring station, rotating shifts of human specialists who will maintain the routine, provide the containment spheres, and continue behavioral support. You are proposing, I said slowly, a permanent babysitting operation for a cosmic horror entity. We prefer the term supportive care facility, Lieutenant Tanaka said. But sure, babysitting works. 3 months later, I filed my official report with the Galactic Council. The Shrieking Void had not consumed a single inhabited system since Operation Naptime commenced. It had actually begun exhibiting what xenobiologists described as playful behavior, creating elaborate patterns with the consumed matter and responding positively to human interaction. Your conclusion, Ambassador Threll? High Magistrate Curvin asked, his 3 vocal cords producing harmonies of barely suppressed disbelief. My conclusion, I said carefully, is that humanity's apex predator is not their most dangerous creature. It is not their most powerful weapon. It is their capacity to remain patient, consistent, and calm in the face of absolute chaos, because they spent their formative years learning to manage miniature agents of entropy, and that experience fundamentally shaped their problem-solving approach to the universe. And the child, Marcus? I pulled up a recent video file. Marcus, now several months older, sat in a human educational facility finger painting. He wore an expression of intense concentration. The artwork appeared to be a blue transportation vehicle. Marcus is fine. According to his caretakers, he has entered a slightly calmer developmental phase. Slightly. And what happens when he enters another chaotic phase? I smiled, something I had learned from observing humans. Then his species will adapt, problem solve, and maintain boundaries with patient persistence until he moves through it. Because that is what humans do. They survive the unsurvivable by treating it as Tuesday. Extraordinary, Curvin murmured. Indeed. I recommend immediate consideration of human specialists for any future cosmic-scale behavioral anomalies. They possess expertise we did not know we needed. The Council approved the recommendation unanimously. 6 years later, I attended Marcus's 9th birthday celebration. Jessica invited me personally. The party took place in a human dwelling with bright decorations and approximately 15 other small humans running in chaotic patterns. Ambassador Threll. Marcus ran up to me, now significantly taller but still possessing that distinctly human energy. Did you know I want to be a xenobiologist when I grow up? I want to study space creatures. That sounds like an excellent choice, I told him sincerely. Mom says I already have experience with monsters because I used to be one. He laughed at this, completely unaware that he had once terrified 17 apex predators and inspired a complete restructuring of Galactic Council threat response protocols. Jessica appeared beside me, looking less tired than she had at the tribunal. Who knew that throwing a tantrum would save the galaxy? To be fair, I said, accepting a cup of something sweet that human younglings apparently consumed at celebrations, it was not the tantrum itself. It was humanity's collective response to managing tantrums that proved strategically valuable. True, she agreed. Though I still think bringing Marcus to that meeting was one of my better diplomatic decisions. We watched the small humans play their incomprehensible games. Somewhere in the Kelvin 9 system, the Shrieking Void consumed its daily allotment of containment spheres and made pleased humming sounds that registered as localized gravitational waves. The universe continued spinning. Chaos existed everywhere, as it always had. The difference was that now, the galaxy knew who to call when chaos needed managing. Humans. The only species crazy enough to raise their apex predators from infancy and call it normal childhood development.